Hi, everyone. Welcome to NewsNow podcast number 8. Right, Tristan? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 8. So we've got the lovely and talented Bryan Macaulay here from Village Studio, but he's not here to talk about Village Studio. He's here to share DIA, Downtown Improvement Area Board, perspectives. And we're going to get into his background. But first, we really need to talk about the most important news of the day. Montreal beat Toronto on Monday. Toronto's golfing. Montreal just beat Winnipeg in game 1 of round 2. And that's what's really important. Bryan, how do you feel about that? I just had to get that in there.
I know.
So,
Thanks
Downtown Grimsby, Bryan.
Yes, sir.
We've been hooked up in different ways since the mid-90s. I came here in 95. Started the other paper in 97. By 99, I was on the DIA board, as were you.
I was.
We spent about 10 years, 11 years, something like that,
Yeah.
on the board together through that time. Roughly 99, 2000 to about 2010. Took a break, and we're both on the board now.
Right.
We've seen a lot of changes in downtown in the last couple of years. Some of them have been driven by COVID impacts. Some of them have just been natural turnover of some of the merchants. But if you could maybe just start by giving some background on your shop, how long you've been on Main Street, and let's start with that.
Sounds good. I've been in business since 1977. My parents started. Our original location, we've always been downtown, but it was original location was 18 Elm Street, and that's where Grimsby Life Center is now. But I've been on Main Street since 94. It's funny, you have to peg things as to how old your kids were.
Whatever works.
Whatever works, yeah. So I've been on Main Street in this location, 9 Main Street West, since 94. As you mentioned, I was DIA chair for 9 or 10 years. I say chair, but you were my vice chair, so we kind of co-chaired.
We traded, yeah.
Yeah. And I was Chamber of Commerce president for a year before that.
Right.
So lots of changes in the Main Street since my tenure, since I've been here. You and I were neighbors back in the beginning.
Yep.
You were right next door to me.
Where Donna's is now is our first office.
Yep.
In May of 97. Yeah. And we were talking before we started, going back to then, like you go beyond that, of course, but going back to my start on Main Street, there's only a handful of merchants on Main Street that have been around that long. Sandy and Teddy, another Sandy, and George at Charlie's Barbershop.
That's right.
And
Marlene Smiths and myself.
Yeah. And we don't mean to leave anybody out if we
No,
are,
right.
but there's only a few. There's
Yes.
only a few. So that was why I gave you a call about coming in, just to talk about some of the changes that we've seen of late and some of the changes that we're going to see. Because there's a lot going on downtown. And, being on the board now again in a new incarnation, new pressures, new things going on. A lot of it really good. Really good.
Yes.
And so, last year when COVID came on in March, we started to see some transitioning of some of the storefronts. There were quite a few vacancies. I want to say even 6 or 7.
There was.
Last fall.
Yeah.
To the point I know where the town was even considering changing the zoning and allowing services on Main Street, which had been protected for retail, to encourage foot traffic and things like that. And then in the time before that even got really on the table, everything was filled up which is kind of the way, in my recollection over the last 2.5 decades, there have been brief tenures of vacancy, but they've always filled up.
Yes, as a downtown, because downtowns have been challenged over the years. Many downtowns, if you look at St. Catharines, Welland, there's a lot of vacancies at times, and we've been very fortunate to not have that. And we're there again now. Like, we have many new stores, and there's 1 or 2 vacancies, but I believe from our conversation that they're all.
The only vacancy I'm aware of is where Mrs. Greenway was before they expanded, which is a good thing. Moved across the street to the old Home Hardware building, and they're doing great from everything that I hear.
Yes.
So that place is empty, but from what I understand, there is an occupant for it, and planning and design is in the works, and there's going to be a new retail shop in there in the coming months. But I would say it's empty, but not vacant. If you,
I get you. Yeah.
You know the difference. But excuse me, as we were talking last fall, there was the spot just east of the Dutch shop that was vacant for some time when the Brick Shack moved down the street.
Correct. Yes.
Then there was the spot right on the corner where Happy Baby was at Ontario Street. Right. Then the place right next door to that was vacant. And then Home Hardware was vacant for a bit until Mrs. Greenway moved in there. Now Simply Moto has moved across the street and filled that spot. There's a new home decor place at the corner of Ontario and Main. Home Sweet Home Decor, I believe, was the name.
That's it, yeah.
And the other shops were
there's
across the street from you?
Yep, there's 416 Coffee.
Yep.
Brand new. And gosh, I forget the name of it, but it's a brand new salon.
Cosmetics and such.
Correct. Yeah, salon.
Not really my thing. That's or yours maybe. That's why you're not remembering the name. But no, I know that it's a cosmetic shop.
Yeah, but when we're all allowed to be open, then I'll certainly go and see them and introduce ourselves.
And then just your neighbor practically is the new. It's going to be a Italian goods and a market style.
I'm excited
shop
about
there.
that. Yeah.
They have some, like I've spoken to the owners there.
Right.
I don't want to let too many cats out of the bag, but it's going to be quite diverse in their offering.
Very cool.
And everything made from scratch on site, and a unique offering for the town. And that's going
to be cool.
Neat shops, very interesting shops. So what do you, in your experience, what has been the reason that we get this fairly quick infill or flow of people trying to, take advantage of the opportunity that Grimsby presents?
Well, I think that.
What do you think the upsides are here?
Well, I think that the customer base, people like. We have a nice downtown. It's nice to go for a walk.
We're very lucky with parking. Number one.
Well, we are, but we have a nice town to walk in. Every morning, I was just talking to Brooke, my assistant, and every morning, even though we can't be open, we have a mom with 3 or 4 kids who stop by every morning and look at our window. And it's a nice town to go for a walk with your kids in or your dog. So we're very fortunate that our customer base in town likes to shop local. So I feel that after we're all able to be open with, giving them some sort of small incentive to come downtown, we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to flourish again.
And we did that with the DIA last year with that gift certificate program, which was a very successful program. That really went well. It was the first time we'd done anything like that.
That's what we talked about, just rolling that out again.
It did really well. Yeah. Now, you mentioned walking downtown. A key thing to walking downtown is residential density and having people downtown, living downtown first before you worry about traffic and walking.
That's the number one thing from the Ontario BIA Association. They say that you need to have people living in your downtown to make it flourish.
To survive.
Correct.
That's right. Yep. To avoid that, Mississauga urban sprawl situation where it's easier to drive to a mall than walk a block.
Yeah, truly.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reason I mention that is, the opportunity that's coming with the Century Condo building, which has been much discussed for several years. Yeah. But that's going to be a very good opportunity with additional commercial spaces on the main floor. Yes. And I don't want to guess, it's around 70 residential units above. That's awesome. That brings people and shoppers and people for patios and all those good things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had people come to me. You mentioned patios. I've had people call me simply because they saw my window from sitting at the 40, having a drink or having dinner out on their patio. So that's an important factor.
Yep. And so there's, in addition to just geography, there's the history aspect to town, and you've got the escarpment and beamers staring at you when you're on Main Street. Yes. Like there's other nice elements to it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was even, a plan years ago that talked about creating a walking path or something from Foran's Marine, like coming up from the waterfront to downtown. I don't know. That was that's on someone's wish list.
Yeah, you're
somewhere.
pulling
I think
at my memory here. I can't.
But some sort of a north-south connection, because I know there's been sort of talk of that connecting right from Beamers all the way coming down, essentially following the 40 to some degree.
Wouldn't that be cool?
And connecting hiking trails, because green tourism is the number one driver right now, cycling and hiking and things like that.
Yeah.
So trails and marked trails are popular for that kind of thing, and you just have to create it, and the people will come, just like Field of Dreams,
Nice.
except for it's not a field.
Yeah.
So and there's other developments just to diversify off Main Street. We can talk about what DIA sort of outlined for potential of Ontario Street with the visioning that we did back in January there, but also going around Elm. You had the change with the former Different Strokes building that got fully renovated by Harley Valentine, and Harley was here a couple weeks ago, and we talked about what they were doing with the music series, particularly at the Wolverton building with the outdoor music series.
Very exciting, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's a whole other sort of entertainment cultural draw.
Right.
That someone is of their own volition putting in that kind of an investment and creating that opportunity. That doesn't happen every day.
No, it doesn't happen every day, but it's exciting when it does.
So that's something we've also talked about in terms of supporting, because it's very complementary to the other things that are going on. And so just to draw things around Elm, you've got the repurposing of the Different Strokes building, and then he's got other developments going on with the Parkette and the former Syndicate / Gables, going back even further, which is Wolverton House as a historic name.
Yeah.
So that draws things around to the south side. And then Ontario Street, we've talked about different things, and it's complete pie in the sky what we did just to show some options, with the possibility of creating a one-way street option there, creating, I think it was 48 additional parking spaces down Ontario towards the tracks, and a town square element, utilizing some of Adelaide Street. In terms of a common landscaping with the parking lot in front of the old Carnegie building, and working with the natural landscape there. So if there is an event and things were closed off, you'd have a fairly large-sized town square with parking all around. And
that's an amazing plan.
And that was with no property acquisition on the part of the town.
Correct.
That's just using
what we have.
Using what you have is right, which in terms of economics can be quite feasible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of the reason we started looking at something like that is we know with the Main Street construction that's coming in a couple of years. People in town may or may not know, it's something we've talked about at the DIA since early 2019. The Main Street's going to be torn up between Robinson and the bridge for water and sewer expansion.
That's going to
the time of year is unknown, but it's believed to be 2023 at this point. That was the latest information from the mayor, who sits on the DIA as the town liaison, and of course is at the Niagara Region table. So we're going to need some patience and additional bells and whistles to maintain some traffic and sort of relaunch, and that's all coming after COVID.
Yeah.
So when yes.
So you get hit, and then you get hit again.
So when you talk about downtown and its resiliency, it'll certainly be tested.
Absolutely.
But it is a great little downtown.
Oh, it is.
And the people are great, and like you say, the client base is key. But there's an interesting mix of shops. The new shops are very complementary to what's here again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like the shops you mentioned, I'm excited for them. We just got to get open.
Yeah. So what would you say is, we've talked about how things are similar, but what do you think the the biggest change has been in the last 25, 30 years? Or do you think there's been a major change? Is maybe the fact that it's consistent is what, allows an entrepreneur to have some level of confidence in what the market represents?
Yes, yeah, the consistency is key. The people are the consistency. So having people being able to come into my shop and just visit, and I'm not always looking to make a sale today, but I'm chatting with people to create a good environment, and then they think of me when they're ready to buy. That's the main thing that's consistent. So in this digital age, you have to remember that people are just people. They and that's why newspaper still works, because you may have people who say that you have to do market this way and this way, but when I just had in March one of my biggest promotions per year.
The Easter promotion.
I have live bunnies and chicks, and I always do newspaper ads as well as my other marketing, and it pulls. It draws every time.
Well, there certainly is traditional elements to the town. There's no doubt about it. And that's a big part of the reason you get, when you talk about the customers and consumers and the residents, that's a big part of the reason people move here.
Yes.
When you think about coming out of the GTA and how close we are to the GTA, but the quality of life that you get here compared to anywhere in, say, Stony Creek, which would be the next adjacent community.
I had a client I was talking with 2 weeks ago.
Night and day.
Mm-hmm. She said that she walks down the street and people nod and say good morning. And she's like, lived in Hamilton 30 years, went to the same grocery store, and nobody ever speaks to you. And random people just say, hi, how are you? And that's the beauty of a small town.
Well, there's so many, and you must get this too, being on Main Street for so long, but maybe because it's the newspaper, we'll get people coming in and what they expect you to know. Right? Like, it's beyond a tourism kiosk.
But that's because you had Sandy here for so many years.
Yeah.
And Sandy truly knew
she
everything.
Because people will come in and say, I haven't been in town in 40 years. I grew up over on Fairview. Right. And, Mrs. Smith was still at the corner. Is she still there? And they'll genuinely ask questions like that because they think that you know everybody in town.
Right. Truly.
And Sandy would.
Yes, she would.
She would. But
right.
When she managed carriers for me for 10 years.
Yeah.
And at the Independent, I don't know, 30 years?
Probably.
Into the 70s.
Yeah.
So she knew all the families and all the kids and neighbors and whatever. So that certainly created expectation. But I think it just follows, when people come into town and they see the sign at the corner, they think,
he'll know.
And right. We'll find out too, right? And, everything from right now when you talk about accommodations and residential apartments, we'll get people coming in asking about apartments. I'll say regularly because there aren't any.
Right. You
can't find them. So people want information. They're going to knock on the door. But you must get some people coming in again. Just they might be in for something else, and you're just chatting away. And
no, I feel like I'm an information station too. Like they'll call or drop in and say, this is a strange one. It's like, well, let me tell you, the strangest one I ever had was a fellow came in and he said, "Do you rent cars?"
Do you rent cars?
Yes. Yeah. And I looked at him. I was like, no.
But if you want to make a few bucks, you could have given them your van.
Anyway. Yeah. But that, that's
right.
odd. That is odd, isn't it? Yeah.
That's random.
But I looked at it and it was in the yellow pages. I know. And then I called them and they wouldn't change it because I didn't.
It was in your ad?
No, not in my ad. They're like an Avis or whoever it was. There was a rental place and it
had the wrong phone number.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they wouldn't change it because it's not. Anyway, it was funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we've covered the background, we've covered what's here, and we haven't talked too much about the future other than the design. Yeah. But, if there was something you could change, not the visioning thing, if there was an element that you would tinker with to improve downtown, can you think of something that you would like to see happen if you could just
A magic wand?
wave your...
Magic wand. Honestly, as downtowns go, I think we're pretty good. I can't envision being in business anywhere else. When I look at, I still, when I'm in another municipality, I look at how clean it is, how they do their flowers, and
Yeah.
because our mandate, of course, is the promotion and beautification of the downtown core. I look at that in other municipalities, and I sort of compare us, and I think we do it pretty well. I can't see. I'm sure there's always areas for improvement, but I can't think of any. None come to mind.
For me, it would be protecting things, keeping what we have. And again, parking number one. And going back to our first stint, we used to have arguments with the region when they wanted to take on-street parking away up by what was Grimsby Chrysler at the time.
Yes, yeah.
And we did lose, I want to say 4.
3 to 4. I remember having that.
But they wanted all those
gone.
All those spots up there across from the Station 1 coffee house and such. They wanted all those parking spots gone. Yeah. And those are just so, especially at that end, because there's not much parking up there at all. No.
So,
boy, those parking spaces are so precious.
They are. But we had, I forget the year, but Regional Councillor Wayne Furtick was an alderman at the time, and he spearheaded the north side parking behind Teddy's and the sub shop at the time, and thank goodness.
That was a good 20 years in the making, that agreement.
But it took Wayne. It took Wayne to do that, to talk to the landowners and explain to them in a reasonable way that it was a good deal.
Yep. And that was not a simple deal. There's a lot of ins and outs there.
No,
and even to some degree, although I think I might understand it, maybe might want to have one of them in to explain it. But, that was a very good thing, that north side parking for downtown.
And it truly took...
The efforts of that was Dave Vansicle at Royal LePage at the time. Mm-hmm. Sula and Jimmy Caretzos.
Right.
And Teddy Senior,
I think, yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Eventually worked that out.
Yeah, they did.
That was very important,
And it wouldn't have happened without Wayne.
Yeah. All of them. Everybody was at the table on that one.
Yes.
Yeah. But, to me, it would be maintaining that somehow. But the one thing that some people will look at as a curse, and really I think it's the last thing on the table for us, but when people talk about traffic, now Grimsby traffic is,
pretty
drop in the bucket compared to 427 and 401 about 5 o'clock.
Right.
But in a small town, people might think it's a lot. And
as a business owner, I truly don't mind people driving past my door.
Well, if traffic got diverted from downtown would die.
Correct.
Having traffic funneling through downtown is vital to the economic survival. Yes. People are going to go to the grocery store.
Sure.
Everybody needs food.
Right.
But would that grocery store necessarily survive? Or certainly the shops and some of the restaurants around where you don't get spin-off effect. Right. Those kinds of things. The parking, the traffic is vital for downtown.
Truly.
So it's a necessary evil, and certainly there's not a lot of option. It's not like there's going to be another thoroughfare created on the east-west corridor. When you've got the escarpment in the lake, unless we go channel through the lake or something. But it's sort of a necessary evil, but it's like some people hate it. But if you look at what it does for downtown,
yes, right,
I would hope that people would say, yeah, I'm not happy about it, but it's our town and it's important to make the place go. And
I agree.
That's what it is.
And we do have a natural bypass with Elm Street.
And the service road
And the
too,
service
if
road,
people want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's there if you need it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are, if you're in the East End and you're taking your son or daughter to Peach King for an activity or an event or whatever, you're going to be on Livingston in Maine, and
Yes. That's right.
you don't necessarily want to go around the service road, but it's an option if traffic is a concern.
Yeah.
But to me, that's how I look at it. And even when the market's downtown, that only aspect is an issue when you get the QEW closures and you get traffic backed up into Winona along Highway 8.
Yeah.
And, that's just stuff happens.
It's just stuff happens.
Right? If it happens on a Wednesday, nobody notices.
Right.
When it happens on a Thursday afternoon, But the market's been good to downtown.
It has, absolutely. Yeah. It's that's something that what I ended up doing was I would stand out. I have an old 1920s 5x7 view.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And I put that out front with a display of old photographs. So I'm not out there to sell, but I'm out there to have conversations with people.
Soft marketing.
And it works all the time.
And that was the one aspect too, with going back to that Ontario Street outline, proposal, whatever you want to call it, was the opportunity would be there also to create a permanent home for the market downtown.
Yes.
Then you could have the best of both worlds. You could have it downtown with lots of parking all around, still draw all the people, but it wouldn't necessarily be right on Main Street.
Correct. Yeah.
So.
And when it was in the old church parking lot before it was in Main Street,
yes,
we had I found that we had a lot of people who'd get their thing, whatever they wanted at the farmer's market, and then just, hey, let's go for a walk.
Yep.
And see what else is in town.
Yep. Yeah. But then that falls back on the DIA to create those draws and other elements to move people around.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Anything else you can think of to add to the current DIA tale? I think we've covered it.
I think we've covered it. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having time to come in, and I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you. We'll see everybody next week.